Okay, so welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a recap of Greenleaf Season 1, Episode 4, The Underdog. So Maya's in Atlanta to see Miss Maxine Patterson, which of course is played by the fabulous Patti LaBelle. And her lobby to her church puts Calvary to shame. I mean, Maya's sitting in this palatial lounge lobby waiting for the receptionist to come down off the elevator to escort her up, and she has posters of herself and has a little recording of her giving a little sermon and, you know, her little inspirationals, and I mean, it was just gorgeous. And then of course she went upstairs, and right away she could see that something was bothering May, so they sat down and she basically told her that she's divorcing James. And she was like, you know, you tried to tell me, but I was so I was chasing that MRS, the missus, instead of her degree, MS, instead of her MS. I think that's what she said. And how now she wants to go back to school, and she wants to follow her calling, which is to preach. And she said, but I haven't. I guess she said I haven't, but I don't know where. She wants to build her own church, and so. Maxine was like, why would you want to do that when you have a perfectly good church? And she was like, what? She said, Calvary. And she said, you know, I've seen how these things work out. When the pastor and the first lady divorces, the pastor stays on and lives high in the hall, and they be eating. And the first lady, she's scrounging around looking for a crust of bread. And she was just basically encouraging her to go back to Calvary and just take over, basically. I don't know if that's the right approach. I can say that her and James built Calvary. So can she stake a claim? Absolutely. But that's going to be an interesting battle. So she, you know, arrives back home because they have this party that they're planning for I guess the deacon board and some of the people that help out in the church, just to say thank you for all their hard work throughout the year, over the year. And it's something they do annually. So she arrives, and of course she's just making sure, putting the final finishing touches and making sure everything is everything. And then she goes up to the room to get ready to change. And so James is in there. He's just getting out of the shower, and she looked at him like, "What are you doing in here?" And he was like, "Oh, well, so and so cleaned the bathroom, and I didn't want to soil it." And she was like, "Well, who else is coming?" He's like, "Well, nobody, but you know how people like to roam." And basically, he didn't want to use any bathrooms that the guests might wander in. So, and so she said the lady, I forget her name, who they said she would give them $2 million. She's supposed to be coming, and she said that she hasn't given them the check yet. So. Okay, that's going to be interesting. She's probably going to say, hell no, I'm not going. I'm not doing this. That's your tax problem. I'm not getting involved. So she can still change her mind. I'm like, okay. So he's there. She's upstairs getting ready. And so they flash to Jacob and Kerissa and Zora. They're getting ready to head over to the house for the party. And of course, Zora is being her annoying ass self. I just wish one of them would just slap the shit out of her. He was basically like, don't you go wandering around and and she was like, all right. Or she made some comment, and Kerissa was like, you need to respect your father. He said because military school is still on the or boarding school or something is still on the table. And she walked off and said something under her breath, and Kerissa was like, what did you say? She's like, I'll be in the car. I really want somebody to knock the shit out of Kerissa. I'm not Kerissa. Oh Lord, Zora, because she is really freaking ridiculous. And you see, Kevin and Aaron. Kevin is still trying to get in contact with Charity. She's not answering her phone. It's going to voicemail. It's saying her box is full. He's probably blowing her up. She's wherever she is with this kid. And of course, he's now talking about calling the police to file kidnapping charges. And surprise, surprise, Aaron was like, you know what? I wouldn't do that if I was you. Because, it's a bell. Once you ring it, you can't unring it. And, she is his mother. So it's probably not, time for you to go that route. And so Kevin kind of walked away and, went in the room. I guess he just gonna get himself together so he can go head over to his parents' house. And of course Sophia, and who looked beautiful in her little dress. Oh my goodness, she looks so cute. And Gigi, they're upstairs getting dressed, and Darius is there, and he, you know, they had a little conversation. And so Bishop is downstairs, and he's at the little bar having a drink, and Percy Lee Thompson walks in. And I don't know if he's the undertaker or not. I don't know. He works at a funeral home. So I don't know if he the owner or what his role is, but he showed up in his little suit. And he was like, oh, you didn't tell me this was going to be such a swanky party. And he's like, oh, it's really not. It's just, a party every year, da, 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 da. He said, well, yeah, but why am I here? He said, well, because you were the one that introduced us years ago. And, we're not, me and May years ago. And so we're not in the best place right now. And so I thought maybe seeing a familiar face is, I'm just one last ditch effort to basically save my marriage. And just before he could finish, May walks down and she was like, Percy Lee Thompson. And so she walks over and she's already by the way they turned around, the pastor turned around, he looked at her like, oh damn. So he didn't really get a chance to cook up his little whatever, little scam or whatever to try to manipulate her in the stand. And so she walks over and she was like, oh, how, the little greetings, and she looked at him with a little smile like, like that smile, like, I know why you're here, but she was like, well, what are you doing here? And she kind of cut her eyes at the Bishop and looked back at him, and they all, both of them standing there just looking crazy. So, come on, Bishop. You've been married to that woman too long. She know all your little tricks. I don't know how you thought you was about to pull that off. Okay, so a lot just happened at this party. Just a little bit. Okay, so they briefly have May, Bishop, and what's his name? Percy. They reminisced a little bit about the good old days, and they kind of went their separate ways, and then Aaron and Kevin walked in, and so Gigi, saw him at the door. She's like, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Where's Charity?" She's like, "I don't know, she's not here." Oh, she's not. So he walked in. I'm like, "Oh God, he's about to make a huge scene." She's like, "No." She said, "Well, she told me that she was on tour, and I called Jabari, and they're in somewhere, and she's not with them." And she was like, what? So she ends up calling Charity. Charity, girl, you make it very difficult for people to have sympathy for you. You really do. So Gigi calls Charity, and she answered her call. And she's like, well, what's going on? Where are you? She said that she was on tour, and I think she said Kevin is here. Kevin said that you're you're not, and he's trying to get in contact with you, and there's a baby with you. And she was like, oh, he's there. She's like, yeah. What's going on? And so she was like, wait a minute, is that water? Are you by a pool? And she said, then so that's when she asked her, is the baby with you? She's like, this place has certified, trained midwives, something she said. So don't talk to me like I'm some irresponsible parent. She's like, well, where are you? Well, he left, so I feel like I can too. And Charity, bitch, you are so freaking annoying. So freaking annoying. So Kevin grabbed the phone, and she heard his voice, and she just hung up on his ass. And he basically said, I'm calling the police. Basically, he's ready to call the police and file a kidnapping charge. She talked him out of it briefly, and she turned to Aaron and was like, please don't let him call the police. She said, well, I don't really think I have a choice. And so Aaron was like, I don't really, basically I don't have a choice, but I understand what you're saying. And so they leave, and then you have Kerissa and Jacob. They're talking about this boot camp that she was talking about sending Zora to, and he's like, where are you going to send her? And it's in Wyoming somewhere. And he's like, you're not sending her to a boot camp. And they're going back and forth, and then May sees them, and so she walks over. She was like, well, what is going on? What are you guys talking about that has you looking so grim? And Kerissa, girl, I thought you'd be a better liar. She's like, oh, well, Jacob is just getting on me because I like port, and he said something. And like, it don't even sound like some shit Jacob would say. That's why she was like, oh, okay. And so they walked off. And she kind of caught Jacob. He was in the, I guess the, I want to say the den, but you know, looking at the family photos, and she walks over and she said, well, what is going on? You know, you can always talk to me. And so he told her about Kerissa wanting to send Zora to Wyoming to this boot camp. And she's like, Wyoming? And so, yeah, he said, well, you know, we found out that she's been stealing from the collection plate, and it's just, you know, it's just been one thing after another. And so she was like, well, you know what? Let her stay with me for a while, because she wouldn't dare disrespect me in my house. And he said, you know what, I'll talk, you know, that sounds like a plan, but I'll talk to Kerissa about that. And so next thing you know, you hear the clink, 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 and somebody's about to make a speech. Of course, it's James. And so May is just sitting there with the sour face like, okay. So he calls her up, and she stood there for a minute. I'm like, oh, girl. So she eventually walks up, and, you know, he basically gave this heartfelt speech about all of the people who have, you know, helped them over the years, and who helped them with, you know, everything, basically everything has to do with the church and all of these things. Basically, he was very gracious and thankful. And then he was like, you know, I'd like all my children and grandchildren to come by. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, come on, May, come on. Because after like any minute now, I'm thinking, okay, she's about to crack. And so he's, you know, started talking about how they met, and, you know, how she, you know, he thought he was going to spend his life alone. And then he met her, this pious woman who, you know, he fell in love with. And he basically, he can't imagine his life without her. And I was expecting her to break any minute. Like, okay, y'all, we getting a divorce. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. This shit ain't real. It's all fake. But she knows she did her whole fake smile and while cutting her eyes at him. And then he turns to her and he, you know, starts crying, and, you know, he hope, you know, it's been a great 40 years, and I hope we have another 40 more. And they kissed, and she, you know, yeah, I mean, she just, you know, she was hard to read. I was thinking, Lord, any minute now she about to grab the mic and just say something, but she let it ride. And I'm like, oh hell, it's gonna be hell. I'm just thinking like, it's gonna be hell after all them people leave. She can be like, James, what the hell was that? I can just imagine. I can just see it. Okay, so Rochelle Carl shows up, and of course, they locked eyes, and if looks could kill, Rochelle Cross would have been dead on the floor. But to be fair, May have suffered the shot or two as well. But she turns to James and said, what is she doing here? And he said, I'll get rid of her. And so he pulls her to the side and he says, you know, I told you that I was working on my marriage, and I told you to give me space. And she said, well, I felt that I did give you space. He said, it was you that called me and asked me to meet you at the Biltmore. He said, well, you know, if I ever gave you any indication that we were going to be more. She said, what do you mean? That, you know, the time you held me like you wanted to kiss me, or that time you, something she said like you, like a man dying of thirst. I'm like, girl. And he basically said that if I ever gave you any indication that, after she said, I'm in love with you. And he had to look at her and be like, if I ever gave you any indication that we were ever going to be more than friends, you know, I'm sorry. And so she put her glass down and walked on, sashayed out, walked past May, giving her a few, you know, one last shot. And so Bishop walked by, and you saw Percy standing with, oh my God, what's her name on the deacon board? Deacon Sykes, is their name Sykes? And they're kind of looking like, what the heck is going on over there? But he walks over, and May, they go over into another room, and he told her that she's leaving. And she looked at him and she was like, you know, why are you talking to me? Because he looked like he felt some kind of way about it. And she said, why are you talking to me? Your feelings are clearly with her and not with me. She was like I said, we're over. And she walked away, and he just held his head, and he's just, I don't know, it's not a whole lot he could say. Okay, where to start? Okay, so Rochelle couldn't just take her ass out. She had to leave, she had to be messy as hell. So she's walking out, and she walks past Clara, and Clara's like, oh, you're leaving so soon? And she said, oh, well, she said stepmother to her. And she said, she pulled Clara to the side and said, so, now I don't want to be nosy, but what has you tied up with the church, with Calvary? And because she asked if she would donate to her and Gigi's organization, and she was like she couldn't because she had some financial stuff tied up with the church. And so now Rochelle's trying to find out, okay, well, what's that about? And so Claire had enough sense. She was like, well, no, I can't say. She said, are you sure? She said, yeah, I'm sure. I just can't say. And she said, well, if it's a money issue, if I was your money manager, then I would tell you to basically to make sure, you protect yourself. So I guess get some paperwork involved, or, do what you need to do to protect yourself. And so she left, and of course Claire was left there thinking like, okay. So Zora and Sophia were talking, and just in general about. Oh, she was like, well, you'd have to thank me for getting your TV back, and I'm sorry I couldn't get the phone, and da-da-da-da. And she was like, I only had the TV for a little while because you kept screwing up. So she's like, oh, my dad, he thinks I'm stealing money from the plate. And she was like, are you? So where did all that money come from? And she's like, no, I'm not stealing. And you just a pathological liar, right? And so Zora's boyfriend walked over to her, and she's like, oh, we're going to go walk down by the water or the lake or something. You want to come with us? She was like, no. So they walked off, and you saw her slink off wherever she went. So Sophia and her boyfriend is in the car, and things were getting a little hot and heavy, and she basically told him, that she wanted to wait until marriage. She wasn't trying to jump his bones in the backseat of a damn car. Come on now, not Miss Saved and Sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost. No. So he got mad and got out and walked off. So she went back into the house, and she saw Zora. When we found out what Zora went, she slinked off to go to Sophia's room, and she got on her laptop. So Sophia walked in, and she was like, she made a comment about what happened in the car and how she wanted to wait until she was married. And then she looked at the computer, and she said, who is Cash? What is Cash Money? What is this? And then she was like, are you still talking to him? Talking to Isaiah. So she was talking to Isaiah. And so she said, he hit you. I can't believe that you're still talking to him, and whatever. And then Zora just got real nasty with her. Like, I'm just sick of you. Everything about you was just Christ this and Christ that, and you're a bitch for Jesus. She told her girl, she a bitch for Jesus. And Sophia stood up and was like, what? She's like, you heard me. So she made some comment about, I don't know, she said, I can't remember, she was going to hit Zora or something. She was like, oh, well, let's see how well he taught you. Talking about Isaiah. She got like, and so they got to a shoving match. Kerissa walks in. She jumps to the man. She looks like, what the hell is going on with the two of you? And so now she's looking at the laptop screen, and she was like, was she looking at this? What is this? And so she looked at Zora's like, if you think you're leaving when you're 18, think again. And she's like, you don't have a choice. And she's waving her hands, and Kerissa grabbed her wrist. She was like, little girl, get your hands out my face. So, well, you went out to 18. Basically, when I turn 18, you guys won't have a choice. And I'm going to be with Isaiah. And so she storms out, and Kerissa is just sitting there like, standing there like, I just don't know who this person is anymore. So, the parties, everybody's, letting out, moving, leaving. And Clara and Karine, who's the receptionist, is her granddaughter. So they're about to walk out, and May stopped her and said, oh, well, we'll be toasting soon. Thank you for coming out. And we'll be toasting again soon, right? And she was basically talking about getting the money. And she said, about that, I think that we should sit down with my money people, and we just should go over the details one more time. How much you want to bet that her money people is going to be Rochelle Cross's ass? Okay. And so now May is, they said the goodbye. She was still cordial. Now May is saying like, oh, hell, what are we going to do? Because if they can't get this money and this tax problem, her ass ain't going nowhere. So, yeah, that's, I tell you, so far these episodes have not been disappointing. Okay, so Grace is at Calvary and she sees a news story that broke that the pastor, that bishop, that they're under investigation by the IRS. And so Deacon walked in and she said that, have you seen the news today? She said, yeah, I was just reading on it. She said, Gigi said, so did you guys decide to join the coalition? I guess it's, I don't know if some churches that are joining this are making it okay for the LGBTQ to come out, be open and come to church. And she said, and Deacon said, no, said, can you see yourself being a head of a church that's not? And she was like, why would you ask me that? And so she was like, I'm not, I'm a realist. The reality is that your parents have not been all that stable for a while now. And if things take a turn for the worse, we might ask you to step up to be head pastor. Are you going to be okay with that? And so Gigi is sitting there like, oh, hell, okay. So Kerissa and Jacob, they dropped Zora off over at Greenleaf Manor. So now they decided to let her go through May's boot camp instead of sending her to Wyoming. And you can see Kerissa was just crushed. I don't know if it was just a combination of like, how did we get here? Like, I don't know. It just probably made her feel like another woman has to come in to get control of her daughter. I mean, it was an emotional time. And so Megan went over, gave her a hug, gave them a kiss, and they left. And you could just tell Kerissa was just not, she knew, I guess she knew it for the time being, it was the best decision, but it did not sit well with her, and she obviously was not happy about that decision. So we switched to Charity. Her ass is singing freaking show tunes in the hotel lobby. Somebody's playing the piano and she's singing a little heart out with the little baby in the stroller. And the boys in blue showed up. Well, in their case, they had on khaki, I guess. But and basically told us, you need to come with us. And so she's looking with this stupid look on her face, like, bitch, did you not think that he would eventually call the cops? Like, you've been gone for days with the kid. Like, come on now. If the situation was on the other foot, you would have done the exact same thing. So now the Greenleaf family is dealing with the IRS situation. They are dealing with the Zora situation. And now they're going to be plastered all over the news yet again after Charity's ass is seen being arrested once people find out that her ass has been arrested for basically kidnapping. This is just a hot ass mess, but like I said, they haven't disappointed yet. But it is late and I need to go to bed, so I'm going to end this here and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.